CERN Basher has promised us that he's going to solve the ultimate AI problem. Isn't that right, CERN? Is that what you promised?
I don't know that I will solve it, but I think we'll have a good discussion about it.
All right. Okay.
And
All
let's
right.
first define what this might be.
What the AI problem might be.
Yes, we should probably define the problem before we come up with a solution.
Okay. Okay.
So imagine a world, Randy, where we have a very capable AI,
Yes.
right? That is acting as our agent,
Yes.
and it's operating independently in the world
Okay.
and doing things. Now, we may not worry too much if it's our AI because we know how it's going to behave.
Maybe.
But what happens if it's an AI from China or Russia or somewhere else?
Yeah.
How do we constrain AI? How do we make sure that other AIs are not causing harm,
Causing, yes. Yes. Hurting
right?
people,
Hurting people or
destroying
stealing
economies.
things or whatever, hacking
Yeah.
into stuff and
Right.
taking all the money out of the JP Morgan's bank, right?
Yes.
Uh, Not JP Morgan's bank, but JP Morgan, the bank. JP
Or,
Morgan's
or
no longer with us, but his bank persists.
Are the Lord of the Rings situation where we turn into slaves and we're just marching forever around in caves? Yeah,
Yeah, right. And I think this is this dystopian world that I think a lot of people worry about with AI.
sure.
So the interesting thing is I think there might actually be a very elegant solution for this,
Oh,
besides just, having some kind of regulation that, Russia and China aren't going to pay attention to,
right.
right?
Or
Or
some
even,
yeah, some crazy person. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So this is kind of interesting. And I would encourage people listening that if they're skeptical about this particular topic, just bear with us for a minute and just let's see if we perhaps, make sense.
And I'll also throw in a shameless plug for the book AI Rising, which CERN wrote the first chapter for. There is a chapter in the book. I think it goes into 14 different ways that we could be looking at a dystopian or some kind of a really bad end. And maybe none of those 14 happen, but I think it's always, just like CERN's going to do here, it's always good to look at them,
Yeah.
and think about these ahead of time rather than, you know, not so good a result.
Well, that's why militaries sort of play out war games, right? They
Yeah,
they
yeah,
practice scenarios that could happen and make
exactly.
sure they're prepared for it.
Mhm.
So we need to sort of do the same sort of thing for AI.
100%.
Okay. All right. So um, here I'm going to start with this previous slide just so people know that we're continuing the previous show.
Okay.
But but here actually is where we want to be. Okay. So I made a couple of posts and I'd like to go through them with you.
Okay.
And right from the start, here's the proposed solution is constraining AI with Bitcoin.
I see.
Okay. And let me explain how and why we can do this or how it might work.
Okay.
Okay. And I've always said that I think that AI and Bitcoin are kind of made for each other.
Hmm.
And I think this is another example. The previous sort of statement I made about it is I think that AI is not going to stand for our current banking system and the way that we conduct,
Yeah,
money transactions around the world.
you have said that. Yes.
Right? It needs 24/7. It needs, access. It's not going to be happy with the slowness of our system
Hmm.
and so on. Our current system can't handle micropayments. So there's all those issues.
Right.
So put all that aside. Forget that for now.
Hmm.
Now we're worried about what happens if the AI is bad.
Yeah. Hmm.
Okay. So the first statement here is that AI is getting so smart and cheap that it will eventually break almost all normal computer security. Okay. And what I'm positing here is that Bitcoin is one of the only things that can still slow AI down.
Hmm. Certainly,
Okay.
certainly in that regard, I think you've made the comment before that we don't have to worry that much about breaking into uh, cryptocurrencies because if it can break into cryptocurrencies, it would be able to break into everything else first.
Yeah. Yeah. Breaking Bitcoin, for example, would be very difficult. It'd be much easier to break into, to continue with our JP Morgan example,
Right, right,
break into their systems.
right.
And the reason is that Bitcoin forces computers to pay a real world physical price.
Mhm.
Okay, and that's electricity and the compute necessary
Mhm.
to do something. So you have to spin up enough compute, enough electricity in the Bitcoin world in order to get something done.
Right.
So it would be very costly then for any AI system to take control of something because it would be a massive investment and it wouldn't happen overnight.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So right now, cybersecurity works like this, right? If you have permission, you can do X.
Mhm.
If you don't, you can't, right? It's called conditional logic, right? Randy, if you have the keys, you get in. If you don't have the keys, you can't get in.
Right.
There's rules, there's passwords, there's permissions. The problem with all this is that these things are all breakable, right? Because they're written in code. They're not physical things.
Mhm.
So you can crack passwords and find some way to get permission, etc.
Right.
And the problem with an AI is it doesn't get tired. It's going to get cheaper and cheaper. It can try billions of combinations,
Mhm.
right? And it can outsmart human designed rules,
Right.
right? It's just going to be so much smarter than really any human at some point.
Mhm. Mhm.
So in the long run, then, AI hackers will eventually break any security system that relies on only rules and logic, right? So it's a matter of time.
Sure.
So it's kind of a race against time in that sense. We know this threat's coming, right? Hopefully not from our own AIs, hopefully not from, Grok and OpenAI and Gemini and so on. But you never know that they may lose control of them. But definitely from countries that have their AI systems that may be
Mhm.
trained on us.
Right.
Okay. So here's AI's weakness though, right? It can't escape physics.
Mm.
So every calculation in AI still needs electricity, compute, time. It's got to be able to dissipate heat, right? There's physical things that have to happen in order for AI to work.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, so the weakness of AI is its computational cost in the physical world. Okay, now it could be in space, doesn't matter. There's still going to
Right.
be a cost.
Right.
Okay, and so that's the one thing that intelligence can't bypass. Okay, so feel free to ask questions as we go because we're kind of building on
Sure.
these
Sure.
things.
Well, it's not a
Yep.
question, but I think you and I have already discussed this before as part of that other thing that I just said a minute ago, which is quantum compute is going to reduce all of those components.
Yeah.
So it'll be less expensive, it'll take less energy, it'll be, et cetera, et cetera. And it looks like we're on the verge of quantum, at least some kind of a new quantum they're talking about now, which is combined with AI, where the AI is able to fix the problems with quantum without costing a huge amount of money. Yeah.
Yeah. It's also true that Bitcoin can be hardened for quantum, so it's not
Right.
like that's just
Right.
this threat that's out there that can't be,
Right.
nothing can be done.
Right.
There's steps that can be taken to harden it. So that's a whole nother discussion, but
Mhm.
let's just assume for now that quantum is a risk that's, positive and negative and can be dealt with.
Sure.
Um, okay. So everybody thinks of Bitcoin as money, digital gold,
Hmm.
money, capital,
Hmm.
right? Or they think it's, useless. Fine. But the world is telling us with 1.5 trillion or so in value that's it's worth something. Okay. But what it really is it's a system that says you don't get to participate unless you prove you spent real electricity and real machine effort.
Hmm.
Okay. And that's what they call proof of work.
Right.
Okay. So it's like saying, show me the receipt for energy you burned, show me the physical effort you spent.
Hmm. Hmm.
No effort, no permission.
Right.
So this is how you constrain AI. You make it be constrained by Bitcoin because in order to mine Bitcoin, right, put an entry on the blockchain, you're going to have to expend real world energy to do so.
Hmm.
So if you protect everything with a layer of Bitcoin, then you've naturally constrained AI in that way.
Right.
You're turning it away from just, the you know, passwords and permission into something that's real world physical cost.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. All right. So again, just why proof of work is special, right? So most information is you see the result, you ignore the cost it took to create it. When you take a photo on your phone, text message, some entry in the database, you don't care how much it cost, right? Because it's nothing. It's almost nothing. But proof of work is the opposite, right? The information itself is proof of how expensive it was to create,
Mhm.
right? The cost is the whole point. That's the reason for it. Okay, and the history of that cost is tracked forever, and the cost keeps increasing over time. So the value of proof of work is the physical cost behind it. Okay, and this is where a lot of other crypto assets completely fall apart because they don't have this structure, the system.
Mm.
Many of them actually expressly went away from the system to reduce the energy costs. But this is actually what makes Bitcoin so useful and so powerful as a security technology.
Right.
Again, forget about it as money. Just
Mhm,
let's
mhm.
focus on it as a security technology.
Right.
Okay. So how does this defeat hackers? So all AI hackers are going to love systems where trying again and again and again is cheap. They can just go all day long and try to hack that password.
Right.
Failing costs nothing. Attacks can be repeated endlessly. Think about the email spammers. They send out 500 million emails. It costs next to nothing to do it.
Mhm.
And they only need one person to click on that and they get the return.
Right.
Okay. So Bitcoin breaks all that because every attempt is going to cost money. It's going to cost energy, wear on the hardware. So they have to use real world resources,
Mhm.
right? Um, it's going to get very expensive very fast. So yeah, so attacking becomes expensive, slow, and hard to scale, right? And this changes behavior, which is exactly what cybersecurity wants. Okay, you don't want the attack to happen anymore. You want to just stop it.
Right.
Okay. And by the way, as a quick aside here, um, the U.S. military has been tasked with a study to figure out how to deter cyber attackers, how to
Mhm.
physically constrain cyber attacks.
Mhm.
And they are due to write a report to Congress by December 1 of next year.
Hmm.
They very clearly are going to find that Bitcoin has that role.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I'm just previewing that a year out here.
Okay. They should
Okay.
just they should just ask you and save the money.
Well, it's not me. There's other people that are talking about this to the U.S. government, so it's not me involved in that. Um, so the idea here then is to reground digital systems into reality.
Mhm.
Okay, so you turn electricity into security, right? You turn computation into collateral, turn physics into rules AI must obey, and
Mhm.
there's no way around it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Otherwise, it can run amok. Okay, AI can outthink logic; it cannot outthink physics. Okay. So Bitcoin then in that sense becomes infrastructure, not just money. Okay. So almost all proof of work computing on Earth today happens on Bitcoin. So that means that Bitcoin has become the global standard for measuring computational effort, the world's biggest cost enforcement machine, and a way to price and restrict digital actions using real resources. Again, if you want to secure something,
Mhm.
ground it in physical real world,
Mhm.
in the physical real world. Just like today, the analogy is if you want to attack U.S. resources around the world, you're going to face the might and resources of the U.S. Army, Navy, Air Force, right? Bitcoin is that in cyberspace.
So the other way to look at it would be on a more micro level. So I spent the first 7, 8 years of, well, more than that, like 15 years of my business career in various areas of security. In this case, it was bicycle security primarily, but other things as well. And we had a rule. Didn't matter which kind of security it was, full house security, commercial security, safes, didn't matter. You wanted yours to be tougher and harder to break into than your neighbors
Yeah,
because as stupid as thieves are, they're always going to want to go to the least secure, the easiest opportunity, at least if the prize is equivalent.
yeah. And one of the main things of having a massive military force is its deterrent value.
Right.
right? If you are going to face the U.S. military, you know you're going to pay a price because
Right.
of the resources the U.S. military has,
Right.
right? Even though, we spend a lot on it, but it's the reason that, very few people try to attack the
Right.
U.S. military,
Right.
right? Um, and that's what you want in cyberspace. Right now, cyber attacks are rampant.
Mhm.
Every day there's like wars going on in cyberspace. So we don't see them because they're virtual,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
there's a lot of attacks going on. You want to try to create a way that you can deter that, and particularly in an AI powered world
Right.
where those attacks are going to come constantly,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Every second of every day, every single computer system is going to be under attack.
Right.
Whereas right now with human driven systems, there's a limit, but with AI, there won't be.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
So the problem is clear, right? And it's just a question of how do we implement the solution?
Mhm.
So here's one elegant way of doing it. It already exists. The technology is already here. Stop thinking of Bitcoin as money. Start thinking about it as a security technology.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, all right. So to conclude on this, so digital gold doesn't even become close to explaining Bitcoin's importance, right? It's really going to be a foundational
Right.
infrastructure of cyberspace.
Right. Mhm.
Okay. So again, AI will eventually break rule-based security, but Bitcoin defends systems by forcing attackers to pay real-world physical costs, something even super intelligent AI cannot avoid,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? That's the only way that we're going to constrain AI is not by outsmarting it, but making it pay a physical, a real-world cost.
Right. Right. Uh-huh. Makes
Okay.
sense. Uh-huh.
All right. So then naturally, as an investment person, you ask this question: is Bitcoin the best way to play AI?
Mhm.
Everybody is so focused
Mhm.
on, NVIDIA, AMD. Which hyperscalers do I invest in? Is it an AI bubble? Is it this, that, the other thing? And yet we might be missing one of the most important components of all this. If Bitcoin and AI need each other, right?
Mhm.
Because if we
Mhm.
need Bitcoin to constrain AI, then Bitcoin may be the way to play it,
Right.
right? Because it's the one, as I note here, it's one thing the AI can't cheat.
Right.
Right. So AI is driving an explosion in computational demand from GPUs to data centers to energy infrastructure. Bitcoin is the only global system that turns raw computation into a scarce, tradable digital asset controlled by no one.
Mhm.
And that's another key feature of this is that the US government doesn't control this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, some people out there believe that, the CIA is behind Bitcoin,
Right.
so there's all kinds of, you know, and I
Yes.
suppose I suppose that is possible.
Right.
Yeah, you never know for sure. But you could make the argument the CIA is behind everything if you wanted
Everything.
to.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what this means, Randy, is that AI consumes compute and Bitcoin prices it, right?
Yes.
Um, so energy producers and AI operators are now in the same ecosystem. And so Bitcoin sits then at the monetary layer of the AI revolution.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
Right.
Okay. A couple more slides and then we can just talk about this.
Sure.
Um, so as AI's marginal cost collapses towards zero, right? When intelligence is free, trust and security become pretty scarce. And that's where Bitcoin comes in,
Mhm.
right? Again, it anchors trust and security in energy instead of code. It provides uncorrelated security that AI can't spoof. It acts as verifiable proof of real world work, immune to AI forgery. Okay. And this is the key element, right? It can't fake it. It can't
Right.
just say, here it is. It has to actually prove it. So anyway, so the investment thesis here, Randy, is if you believe that AI will keep growing fast, okay,
Mhm.
computers and energy will become more valuable. People will want a digital system that proves what's real. Okay, and that's the other thing, right? We don't know what's real anymore.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Then Bitcoin potentially becomes one of the best ways to invest in that future. Again, not investment advice. I'm just sharing ideas here,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? Um, And so the point is that Bitcoin may be one of the most atymistic AI investment plays on earth, in addition to a company like Tesla, which we talked about in our previous episode.
Sure.
Anyway, this is something I'm not hearing people talk about, but I think this could be an interesting pairing here.
Yeah.
So I'll
Okay.
leave it at that.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So we had a conversation like this about a year ago. I think you've put more more meat on the plate here to take a look at this. I think one of the reasons it's not being talked about is because of the complexity.
Yeah.
Bitcoin is hard enough to understand initially.
Right.
Take it from somebody who has now been on shows with you for what now, over 2 years, and you've been trying to help me through it. And I think I know way more about it today than I did 2 years ago, but it's still a complex concept as money, as a storehouse of value, as a tradable, as something that's building up in value in the stock market or in the markets rather. But then you add this layer of security, while actually to a certain extent, it makes it more real. Okay. It actually gives you a use case that might be easier to understand than as
I
a
think so.
storehouse of value. So
Yeah.
you can say, okay, I get it. If I have a combination lock on my safe and the combination on the safe requires me to go to the right, to the left, 3 times to the right, 17 times to the left, yeah, and do that like 100 times, it's going to be safer than it is if you've got something that only requires you to go right, left, right, like an old combination at school in your
Yep.
locker. So we can understand the time, the energy, the expense, and of course you're putting yourself out there to be caught. If you're taking a lot longer to accomplish the task, then you're more likely to be caught. So I think there's some realness to what you're proposing that might be easier actually to understand.
I would encourage people that are skeptical about Bitcoin to forget about the idea that it's money. Now, I would say this, that if Bitcoin is the most secure technology in cyberspace,
Mhm.
then of course Bitcoin would make for great money because it's so secure.
Right, right.
But let's forget about that for a second. Let's
Mhm.
forget about the whole money thing.
Right,
Okay. And unfortunately, because it's got the word coin in its name, it's hard to forget that
right.
it's money,
Yes.
right? But if we think about Bitcoin as a protocol for securing something in cyberspace without having anybody have the keys, so to speak.
Mhm.
Think about Tesla. Elon sits at the top of that kingdom,
Mhm.
right? Elon is the pharaoh
Mhm.
of Tesla. Mark Zuckerberg is the pharaoh of Facebook, right? He- One person has the control, ultimate control. Under Elon, there's executives that have another layer of control, and under them more control. And
Right,
then there's the people at the bottom that have no control at all, other than maybe what they get to work on the machine that they're working on.
right.
Right? It's this tree of control. All that is, in terms of in cyberspace, is all hackable for an AI system, right?
Sure.
Elon has a password to get into these
Yeah.
things
Yeah.
that can be cracked. But if you ground that access into proof of work, which just simply means solving a real world problem, expending energy and putting compute into the world in order to do that, suddenly you have some control over whether it can be hacked or not, because they'd have to bring tremendous resources to bear to hack it.
So even that to me sounds complex, and maybe I'm going to be completely wrong on my next statement. So let's go back to your email example. And let's say that we have encrypted emails today. So in
Yeah.
fact, X on the mail that you now have, the system, the direct mail system, the DM system within X can be encrypted. You just push a button and boom, your stuff is encrypted. But there's a certain amount of effort that would be required to get past that encryption. And so let's say that cost let's say that to break into that system and get access would cost you a penny per email. But if crypto was the securing mechanism. Maybe that jumps to $1 per email or $2 per email, making it absolutely stupid to try to break into. It's like, is there something valuable enough to pay $1 or $2 in order to get past the cryptography?
Yeah, so even more than that, right? So previously, the cost to spamming somebody is the cost of your operation and sending out,
Right.
500 million emails.
Mhm.
But now we're adding a layer on top of that and saying, okay, if you want to access my computer, you're going to have to pay me for me to receive your email.
Right.
Now, initially, it might be a tiny amount,
Mhm, mhm,
but if I determine that the emails coming from you are not to be trusted, I'm
mhm.
going to jack up that amount to some crazy number.
Right.
So if you want to continue to email me, it's going to cost you a fortune.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
So that's a layer of control, right? That's outside of, passwords and permissions,
Right.
right? And so that's kind of what we're talking about here with AI. So if you realize that you're under attack, you jack up the cost of access.
Right.
And right there, that makes it so expensive that you're going to stop attacking immediately.
Mhm,
It
mhm.
would be like in the real world, I've got an army of 1 million people and I'm attacking your country, and suddenly you're destroying my soldiers so quickly, I have to retreat.
Right. Right.
Right? If you don't, you're just going to destroy your entire army. It's the same kind of thing in cyberspace.
Yes. So our banks, our people like JP Morgan, is the United States government, or Chinese government, or anything else? Is there anybody out there who already has started to use uh, uh, crypto as a way to protect uh, assets?
Yeah, and again, I would use Bitcoin because the proof of work
Yes.
is what's
Okay.
unique to
Bitcoin.
Bitcoin,
Yes. Bitcoin. Yes.
right? Crypto is, there's all kinds of
Yes, I know.
crypto
Okay.
assets.
I knew it as soon as I said it, but
Yeah,
thank you for
don't want to be
right.
annoying for correcting on that, but there is a big distinction. Um, good question. I think that there are companies probably experimenting with it and thinking about it.
Mhm.
Right now, as far as I know, this is kind of just high level thinking in terms of, hey, we can see this problem coming.
Mhm.
What solutions do we have? And again, the US military has been tasked
Yes.
with looking into this.
Right.
So that's the stage we're at least at the military level. I'm sure there's different people in the military that are well on their way understanding this.
Mhm.
Um, Whether companies are also looking to do this remains to be seen.
Mhm. Mhm.
But if you wanted to stop email spam tomorrow,
Mhm.
then make every single email that you receive pay you something.
Right.
But the problem, in order for that to work, we need micropayments. Well, right now we
Right.
don't have a good micropayment system.
Right.
So part of this is, we need, what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we need both at the same time.
Right.
So I think this is coming, and I think as these problems become more intractable, we're going to be forced to make some leaps here.
Yeah, and it will take a company. The chicken and egg problem is, I'm sure it existed before the internet, but it became huge with the internet. And Elon Musk, once again, was there with his first two companies having chicken and egg problems.
Yeah.
Because in the first company, he wanted the newspapers to pay for something like Google search. And they said, well, yeah, we can see the value, but we don't have any, we don't have any restaurants that are hooked up yet onto this system, and we don't have any consumers that know about it. So you had this, and then the same thing with PayPal. Oh, I'd love to get on your PayPal system, but nobody I know is on the PayPal system.
Yeah.
So in both cases, it was necessary for somebody to put out billions, literally, of dollars in order to get past the chicken and egg problem. And I think you're probably looking at the same thing here, where somebody's going to have to say, "Look, we will protect uh, Gmail. We're going to protect Gmail, and we're basically not going to charge, but we
Yeah.
will. We can we have a proof of concept here, and then at some point we're going to ask you to pay for it."
I'd be curious as to how much Google spends every year on spam control,
Massive,
right?
massive, massive.
And just look at X. You and I
Yeah.
spend a decent amount of time on X.
Mhm.
Look at all the bots and the different things.
Oh yeah.
Every time I post a post, there's a bot that posts a response with my profile picture,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
It used to be my name, but now it's just some other random name. But it's got
It's
my
not your
profile picture.
picture.
And that happens within 30 seconds of posting a post,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So don't tell me that there's not a problem. Now, to X's credit, I think that they're dealing with a lot of that, but I think it's like whack-a-mole. They fix one problem, another one comes up,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So this is a real issue, and it's only going to get worse and worse as AI becomes more and more capable.
Sure. Sure, sure. Absolutely.
So the traditional way of dealing with this of, oh, here's a problem, let's put our team on this and fix it, is not going to work. Right. We need an automated solution that exacts a real world cost on these bad actors, these bad AIs, these bad, these bad hackers.
Okay, sir. I think we've got this whole new thing to think about. We should have had a chapter, like you said, we should have had a chapter in the book about that. And I also want to be sure that people watch part one of the CERN show this week, which was on Thursday night. I'll put a card right here for that. And it was phenomenal. We had a really good time with that one and lots of valuable information there. So go back and check that out. And CERN, again, thank you for bringing us stuff that we probably, I'm 100% sure nobody's getting what you just did anywhere else. On your X channel, maybe on other YouTubes that you visit, but basically they're not going to find it pretty much anywhere else.
Yeah, I'm not totally alone singing into the wind, but close.
Okay. All right, CERN. Again, thank you. And to all of you out there, it's been great talking to you.
Thanks, Randy.